This story is not for the faint-hearted. This is a myth that has survived over 2,000 years, not because it is beautiful, not because it ends well, but because it is so brutally, disturbingly true about human nature that no one who hears it ever forgets it. This is the story of two sisters, a king, and a crime so monstrous that the gods themselves had to look away. Long before Rome ruled the world, before Athens became the cradle of philosophy, there was a king named Tereus, ruler of Thrace, son of Ares, the war god, a man whose name meant strength and whose blood ran with battle. Tereus was powerful. He was feared. And when he helped Athens crush its enemies in war, King Pandion of Athens gave him the greatest reward a king could offer: his daughter Procne as a wife. But here is what the ancient texts tell us that most retellings leave out. At their wedding, Juno, goddess of marriage, did not attend. Neither did the Graces. Instead, the Furies, the goddesses of vengeance and punishment, carried the wedding torches. A screech owl perched on the roof of the wedding chamber and did not move. The Greeks believed in omens, and this wedding was soaked in them. The marriage produced a son. His name was Itys, and for 5 years the surface of things looked calm. But Tereus had a fire inside him that no wife, no child, no kingdom could put out. 5 years into the marriage, Procne missed her younger sister, Philomela, who was still back in Athens with their father. She asked Tereus to bring her to Thrace for a visit. Tereus agreed. He sailed to Athens. He walked into King Pandion's palace. And the moment he saw Philomela, young, beautiful, completely unaware, something broke loose inside him. Ovid, who recorded this story in his Metamorphoses over 2,000 years ago, wrote it in the most chilling way possible. He said Tereus watched Philomela hug her father, watched her press her lips to her father's cheek, and in his mind, in that twisted, burning mind, he replaced the father's face with his own. He used his wife's longing as a weapon. He stood in front of King Pandion and begged for Philomela to be allowed to visit, tears in his eyes, love for Procne in his voice. The king was moved. Philomela herself was excited to see her sister. Pandion handed his last remaining daughter to his son-in-law and said words that became one of mythology's most tragic lines. "Guard her as a father would. Return her safely. She is my last comfort." Tereus promised, and he lied. The ship never went back to Procne. Tereus took Philomela to a stone cabin buried deep in the Thracian forest, far from any road, any village, any voice that could help her. There he attacked her, brutally, without mercy. When it was over, Philomela stood up, and she did something that required more courage than anything Tereus had ever done on any battlefield. She looked him in the eye, and she spoke. She told him what he was. She told him she would tell the world, every person, every king, every god. She told him that the sky itself would hear what he had done. Tereus answered by drawing his sword, grabbing her tongue with iron pincers, and cutting it out. He left her bleeding in that cabin. He locked the door, posted guards, and sailed home to Procne. He told her with dry eyes that Philomela had died on the journey. Procne grieved. She built no grave because Tereus told her there was nothing to bury. But Philomela was not finished. This is the part of the myth that hits hardest, not the violence, but what came after it. A woman with no tongue, locked in a stone cabin in the middle of a forest, with no paper, no pen, no voice, found a way to speak. She asked for a loom. She wove. Thread by thread, Image by image, she recorded everything: the ship, the forest, the attack, the sword, the blood. She turned cloth into testimony. She sent it, through a servant who did not know what she carried, directly to Procne. When Procne unrolled that tapestry and understood what she was looking at, there was no grief. Not yet. Grief would come later. What came first was something far colder. Procne freed her sister. They held each other in that forest cabin without words, because there were none adequate for what had happened. Then they made a decision together, a decision so extreme that for 3,000 years, readers have debated whether it was justice or madness. They chose to destroy Tereus, using the only thing he had ever loved other than power: his son. Idis, the small, innocent boy who had done nothing, was killed by his own mother. His body was cooked, and when Tereus returned home that evening, hungry and unsuspecting, the sisters served him a meal. He ate. He praised the food. Then he asked, "Where is Idis? I want to see my son." Procne stepped forward and said, "He is inside you." Philomela walked out of the shadows. She was holding the boy's severed head. She threw it onto the table. The sound Tereus made, the ancient sources don't describe it as a scream. They describe it as something inhuman, a sound that shook the walls. He grabbed his axe. He chased them both through the palace, through the halls, into the open air, with a rage that had no language left. And that is when the gods moved. Not out of mercy. The gods of Greece were rarely merciful. They moved because what was happening had gone past the edge of what even they could observe without intervening. Procne's body changed. Feathers, wings. She became a swallow, a bird that flies constantly but never rests, never stops moving. Some ancient sources say the red mark on a swallow's breast is the blood of Itys, stained into the feathers forever. Philomela became the nightingale, the bird whose song stops every traveler in every forest across the ancient world. The voice that was cut out of her, it came back, not as words, as music, as the most heartbreaking sound in all of nature. Every nightingale that has ever sung at night, the Greeks believed, was still singing Philomela's sorrow. And Tereus became the Hoopoe, a crested bird with a long, sharp beak where his sword used to be, still chasing, still enraged, never catching them. To this day, if you walk through any forest in Greece, Southern Europe, or the Middle East at dusk, you can hear the nightingale begin. The Greeks knew exactly who it was and what she was still trying to say. Here is what this myth actually means, and why it has lasted 3,000 years when thousands of other stories have vanished. It is not a story about monsters. Monsters are easy to understand. This is a story about power, and what happens when power has no limit and no consequence.